Our theme is reading for pleasure. We all have a love of reading, and this filtered down from our parents to us as children, and in mine and Marietta's case, further still to our children.
In our current generation, the accessibility to technology has the potential to override reading for pleasure. We have chosen to address certain issues within this presentation.
Our key issues are reading recovery and intervention purposes,
Identifying and motivating reluctant readers,
bridging the gap between a home reader and a school reader,
and gender stereotypes. The Department of Education states that to be a proficient reader, children need to develop the skills in all 6 areas stated on the slide.
When I researched the new national curriculum and compared it to the old one, I found it differed slightly in terms of reading in English. I found that there was a bigger focus on developing pupils' love of literature through widespread reading for enjoyment. This shows that its significance for us as teachers to research and employ strategies to enable children to have a passion for reading.
There are many national initiatives, and these are just a few. Early Reading Connects is a family involvement toolkit aimed at children who are birthed to 5 years old. It encourages a love of language, stories and reading.
Supported by the National Literacy Trust, Story Sacks support children's reading for pleasure as they contain children's favourite books along with supporting materials to stimulate language activities and make reading a memorable, enjoyable experience.
And Parents as Partners in Early Learning was an intervention to encourage and develop practices which could help parents of children aged 1 to 3 to engage with their children's learning. It was an intervention aimed at parents who might be unaware of how to support their children. If we want to promote reading for pleasure, how can we facilitate reluctant readers?
Studies have shown we need to create more literate classrooms. Children are becoming reluctant and unmotivated by reading because it isn't seen as being pleasurable. Teachers need to bring enjoyment back into reading by reading to children and giving them access to their favourite books, and not just reading a book and doing work around it.
Why do you think some children are reluctant readers?
B. Farr stated that children become reluctant readers because they have little experience reading at home and because they have negative experiences with reading. It can be seen in schools that most attention is given to low attaining children who struggle to read because of their intellectual ability. However, more higher attaining children are becoming reluctant readers because they are not seeing reading as being pleasurable, resulting in them becoming disengaged with reading. Has anyone seen any reading intervention in schools?
Well, my school implemented a strategy called Everyone Reading in Class. However, it was generally used as a behavioural management strategy to calm children down. I personally felt this was an inappropriate use of what could be perceived as a good class reading activity.
In my first placement school, I saw a more positive form of reading, ECAR, which stands for Every Child a Reader. It's a literacy organisation dedicated to instilling a lifelong love of reading in children. This intensive reading recovery programme is delivered by a dedicated staff member. ECAR is an expensive process, however, with each year it costing £3,100 per child, so it's generally offered to the lowest attainment 5% of pupils in a school.
Leading on from Sharon's reading recovery experiences, in mine I noticed issues regarding home reading. Some children come back week after week having read nothing whatsoever. There are several reasons that accumulate not reading at home. I assume that this was because of the school's high proportion of EIL. Does anyone else have any alternative experiences?
In my old job as a teaching assistant, I too experienced very, very poor reading at home attainment levels, but this was due to the accessibility for the parents assisting their children. Even though they were only in year 4, a lot of the parents, because the books were not bilingual, couldn't access that text, and that in itself affected children's reading at home.
Maz, I remember in a session you saying something about the boys at your school weren't engaged in reading, and at first you thought it could be because of the lack of male role models in the school. Did any of your research highlight that this could be a possibility?
Well, although the National Literacy Trust and various newspaper articles state that we need more male role models in schools to improve attainment in literacy and reading, 3 studies that I've read have actually found that it's not necessarily the case. Gender role models didn't make much difference, if any, in reading improvements. In Australia, students stated that the sex of the teacher was of little importance to do with academics. It was more to do with personal issues where they felt more comfortable with same-sex teachers. In another study, boys were found to regard reading as a feminine activity, so it may be more to do with stereotyping by teachers, parents, or peers that is the issue.
Oh, okay. Well, have you seen or used any strategies that could help promote boys reading?
During second year placements, I observed intervention groups that consisted mainly of boys, very boy heavy, and they used Project X books, which seemed to be more boy friendly, if that's the correct term, which seemed to engage them more in the reading and comprehension process of reading. They really did seem to enjoy it. And strangely enough, the interventions were female led, and it didn't seem to make a difference to the boys' enthusiasm whatsoever.
Right, so what are we all thinking about our future practice then? I'll go first because I will. I'm worried that intervention is too structured for children who are already insecure about their reading. I'm worried that they see reading as a time and a place with support from a one-to-one. And does that make them a reluctant reader? I don't know whether they read at home for pleasure because they think that it's something that they just do outside of class, and I will be interested to see if I can look into that more on placement.
On placement or future practice when you're a fully
Both.
qualified teacher?
Both.
Both.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that the study that I'm going to conduct as part of my research will help me and show me why children aren't reading at home for pleasure. So yeah.
It'd be interesting if they were children with English as an additional language,
Yeah.
and you can compare that
Yeah.
to just a reluctant reader, which
Yeah.
is yours in itself. They're just a reluctant reader.
Looking towards my future placement, I'll have to consider the different ways I could motivate reluctant readers and the different pedagogies that could do so, and making sure that I as a teacher read to the children and get them to see reading as being pleasurable as that way, as well as them getting to read to me as well.
Yeah, I agree with that, because you see on World Book Days and things like that, and holidays like that, we never see the teacher reading. It's always the children have got to read. The teacher monitors whether the children are reading or not, and I do think that's important.
They do charity fundraising days,
Yeah.
don't they?
Yeah,
Like
they
a
do.
reading day.
Yeah.
But if you're a reluctant reader and you hate reading,
Yeah.
that's not.
Plus,
Isn't that day meant to promote reading in itself anyway?
yeah, it is. But I think the problem is as well, it's all to do with role models, as in outside role models as well. Because a lot of the boys and a lot of the children will turn up as characters from books or comics that aren't necessarily classed as books or comics, like superheroes.
Films as well.
Films.
Films ties into
People,
it.
what I think it's generally seen as just an excuse to dress up. They don't actually look into
Yeah.
books and go, oh, I'll be that character.
Yeah, that is my favourite character
Yeah.
from my favourite
Yeah.
book,
Yeah.
which is the whole point.
And it's what's easiest for the parent as well. What can they
Yeah.
get hold of to?
Yeah.
So it's not promoting reading.
How many sheets can I sacrifice
Yeah, that's it.
for my child's World Book Day?
Exactly.
Casper.